This podcast is about introducing our fans to the animals, plants, and other products that we work with at Josh's Frogs. It's an opportunity to paint a picture of our hobby that is refreshing. We want you guys to be successful with the animals that you're keeping, and we want our hobby to grow ethically and sustainably into the future. All right, welcome to the Josh's Frogs podcast. I've got two guests with me. We're going to talk a little about some tarantulas. But before we do that, I just want to say the Josh's Frogs podcast is sponsored by none other than Josh's Frogs themselves. So we carry everything you need to take care of your reptile, amphibian, or invertebrate pets. So from feeder insects to bioactive to reptile lighting to caging, all that kind of stuff. We carry all that under one roof so we can ship it all to you in one box. We have an industry-leading live arrival guarantee. Applies not just to our animals, but to our insects as well, too. We got tons of blog articles, videos, how-to guides, that kind of stuff, because we want you to be successful. So check us out at joshsfrogs.com. But without any further ado, I am joined with Jayzun and Bruce, two people in our invertebrate department. They handle a lot of our tarantulas here at Josh's Frogs. We're going to talk about one group of tarantulas, so welcome, guys. Thanks for coming. Before we start talking about the tarantulas, I want to talk about you guys. So tell me a little bit about like how you came to Josh's Frogs, and like give people a rundown of like what's it like to work and do this kind of things that you do. Like what's a day look like, that kind of stuff. So how did you get here, and what's a day look like?
Well, I've known you since you were working out of your basement. I worked for Preuss's, and we were happy to carry your fruit flies and quite a few other your feeders. And I always told you, hey, if you ever start breeding tarantulas, you give me a call. You actually didn't. But that's okay. You did put the word out, and I applied for the position 4 years ago. Yeah. And my division, the arachnid division, was in its absolute infancy. Mm-hmm. I was there for the very first tarantula pairing. It was 2 Honduran curly hairs. We produced over 1,500 of those, so we've slowed that down a little bit. Over the course of 4 years, I've been part of this awesome family that you put together. I'm so proud to be part of it. We have 3 core values that guide everything, and I think that says everything about your business. I've gone through a few people that have been in partnership with me in the arachnid division. Many have gone on to do other awesome things, but just about 3 months ago, I got this character.
Hi, and my name is Bruce, but usually I probably would say where I'm mostly known from is Brian's channel and stuff like that, where I originally started doing a lot of work. I really enjoyed doing a lot of that, and I remember about, I would say 3 years ago, I remember coming here and and doing my first tour, and just being blown away over the standards you guys had of the care of animals, everything around here. And it was just like a year later, we come back and we got some frogs from you guys for the reptarium, and then it was like, oh my gosh, this is even better. Like it just got better every time you came here, and it was just like, I wanted to be a part of that. So as soon as I got the call, saying, hey, they had a position open up in the arachnid division. I've loved spiders since I was a little kid, so I was like, oh, this is perfect timing.
That's cool. Now, pretend we're talking to our uncle or aunt that doesn't know anything about keeping tarantulas or spiders or invertebrates or anything. Like, describe a day. Like, what do you guys do on a daily basis? What's it like to work with tarantulas? Give us the lowdown. What are you guys doing?
Well, as tarantula professionals, it's a little bit different than as hobbyists. Interestingly enough, I would describe most of my job as chasing baby spiders around. I chase them around to give them food and keep them inside. I chase them around to pack them. And the poor little guys, I chase them around a lot.
And beyond that, too, it's also just staring at boxes of dirt. It's just like, here's a dog box of dirt, and then, okay, the hole's there. I know I know you're still there because you're still taking the food, but that's about it. Sometimes we see legs.
Now, there's a phobia around tarantulas. Some people are afraid of them. Can you talk a little bit about like how you guys interact with people when it comes to tarantulas, and how do you guide people to, I guess, be a little bit less afraid of them and a little bit more receptive to learning about them? Like, how do you guys handle that when you're confronted with people that are like, man, I can't imagine being around tarantulas?
Well, that's actually a pretty common response. It turns out that arachnophobia is the second most common phobia in America. And then one of the first things I do is actually take a look at what a phobia is. I mean, most people know that a phobia is an irrational fear, but that doesn't mean that the fear is irrational. It means that the fear doesn't react to reason. There are people who are so phobic about spiders that just a picture of a spider can provoke a fear response.
Yeah.
And they know full well, as an intelligent human being, that picture of a spider can't harm them. And the rest of their body's like, what's that got to do with it? It's time to get out. So the first thing is to say that it's okay to be afraid of spiders. I think it's part of an ancestral memory, a instinct, if you will, that knows some of those little 8-legged creatures hurt.
Yeah.
And some of them real bad. But it turns out most of them aren't nearly as bad. And the funny thing is, through exposure, that fear turns into fascination. Would you believe that a little over 20 years ago, when I got hired at Preuss Pets, I was so uncomfortable around tarantulas that I didn't even want to change the waters in the rose-haired tarantula dishes. And those are like 8-legged hippies. Fast forward, and through all that exposure, I've spent the last 2 decades sharing my love of the unloved with a lot of people who've come to love them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What about you, Bruce? Were you always okay with tarantulas? Was there a period where you were like, oh man, I don't know if I want to?
So I always it kind of started when I was a little kid, just thinking of what creeped out, all the other kids the most, and that was spiders. And I just had no issue with it. It never bothered me. I'd pick up wolf spiders and handle them, and it would scare all the little kids. And even when I was a little kid, I would get National Geographic Kids. I would get the magazine that would come in, and I had a big, really cool shot of a macro of a Brachypelma that we're actually going to be showing today. And I put it in one of my binders. Come to school, and my teacher made me sit in the back. She was so terrified of it; it was insane.
That's I don't have a lot of experience with tarantulas, but I was never that afraid of them. Like I think like I never had that fear, and I think part of that had to do with my parents exposing me to other animals as well, and so I had this healthy respect for animals, but not this fear. And I think a lot of times exposure is the best way to overcome that fear. So, all right, talk a little bit about keeping tarantulas as pets. Like, what does it mean to keep a tarantula as pet? Like, why should somebody keep a tarantula as pet? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think the first thing to understand in keeping a tarantula for pets is that not all pets are for petting. Anybody that's kept a fish understood this from the beginning. Now, some people do have a more physical, interactive relationship with their tarantulas. Some people would veer far away from that. We don't take a stand on that. We'd neither condemn nor condone, but they're so much fun to have around and so undemanding. What does a tarantula want? It wants a safe environment where food comes to it occasionally, and wants a little more. So they're so undemanding. So you'll find so many people who keep tarantulas, they'll have entire bookshelves filled with these small cages that are spacious for the animals living inside. They're just hoping for a bug every week. Mm-hmm. And the varieties of colors and reds and blues and violets and indigos is just, Mother Nature's always been my favorite artist, but in tarantulas, she really had some fun.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Well, it's not just the colors too. The colors are a big part of it, but I also like, for me, it's kind of like the like the idea of observing something that you would normally see in the wild. Mm-hmm. So when you're throwing like a cricket in or a roach in, and you're seeing it actually take it and in that predatory way that they do, and it's just like, and each tarantula is different. So you can't. So the moment you get the one, you're like, okay, well, what about the one that really webs it up and really does that? I want to see that one. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden now you got 30 tarantulas, and it's like that, and you become addicted. It's just each one has its own different way of coming at what is a stimulus from you. Yeah. So like where you throw food in there, where you put a little bit of water in there, and we joke all the time. We'll throw a little water, and they'll kind of dance and drum and try to go for the water, thinking it's food. And it's just like each of these interactions are just rewarding in every one of them.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Now, there's different groups of spiders or different groups of tarantulas. Can you talk a little bit about the group that we're going to talk about today, but some of the other ones as well too? Like what kinds of different tarantulas are available in the pet market today?
Well, there's over 1,000 tarantula species existing on the planet now, and there's several
that's
hundred.
A lot. Over 1,000. Wow.
There are several hundred that are in a hobby now, and you're going to find that there are ones that can be imported legally to begin the breeding process. Two, how hardy they are makes them so popular.
Yep.
But the different groups, as far as how they break up are different. You got the New World tarantulas, and some of them are terrestrial. They live on, or under the ground. Some of them are boreal. But those are the ones that have the urticating hairs to defend themselves. And then you've got Old World tarantulas, and that's everywhere but North, South, and Central America. They come in groups. They tend to call the African tarantulas baboon tarantulas because they like to wait just outside their burrow with just their little 4 legs hanging out, waiting for food to go by to grab it. And they thought they looked like little baboon fingers.
Oh, interesting.
You got the Asian arboreals that are long, leggy, fast, oftentimes with more potent venom. But amazing colors. Mother Nature definitely did some playing with some blues with the Asian arboreals.
That's cool.
And then you got the South Australian species, and they can do something called stridulate, which is like a hiss, but it's more like a vibrate, like a cricket. But it can sound from like anything like a wind-up toy to whistling. So some of them are called the whistling spiders of Australia.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Now, talk a little bit about the group that we're going to talk about today, and how are they different than some of the other tarantulas that are in the hobby?
Well, they were the first tarantulas to take hold in the hobby, and for good reason. I had mentioned hardiness is one of the reasons that brought these spiders in. There's some desert species from Mexico that got insanely popular. If your grandfather would have owned a tarantula, he would have called it a Mexican red leg, and it would have been my friend right here. Right here, Mexican red leg. And he would have bought it for the equivalent of $5. They're insanely cheap. They were just brought in by the hundreds of thousands because these guys are hardcore desert survivalists. This is a spider that in the wild doesn't eat every season.
Wow.
They're able to turn their metabolism off and just not burn energy.
Wow.
The longest I've personally witnessed a spider not eating was a rosehair tarantula that stopped eating for an entire year before going back to eating. Could you imagine, like, 2006 kind of sucked. I didn't eat.
I actually I own one too that actually went on a similar hiatus of like about a year and a half, and then finally she ate again. I mean, she's an older tarantula, but still she crushes food now. But it's just that one period of time I was like, the whole time was like, why aren't you eating? Oh my god.
So because of these tarantula survivalist nature, these guys adapted to human habitations. They were forgiving of first-timer mistakes. They were living in environments with just a hide log and a water dish, and they're like, we'll get by.
Yep.
And they're pretty. But this one was known commonly as the Red Leg Tarantula. Now, common names they're not codified. They call them different things in different places. I know they don't call it Red Leg Tarantula where they're from because they speak Spanish there. But it was known as the Red Leg Tarantula Brachypelma smithi, and that was a scientific name. And those tend to stay quite the same, with rare exceptions. And of course, this is one. So then another spider got popular, and I don't have one with me, and that's our friend Brachypelma amelia. And they took a look at this guy and was like, well, that's more of a red leg.
Yeah.
This other guy, I'd say he's more of a red knee, wouldn't you? So then it became known as a red knee tarantula. And again, insanely popular. But because they're so insanely popular and because they grow so slow, and it can take them 8 years to get mature, to be able to breed, they got over harvested. They used to be threatened, and now they're near threatened, but it's still illegal to import them.
Huh.
And that actually gave birth to our hobby. Our hobby didn't really take off until they started being captive bred. Here at Josh, we think that all pets should be captive bred. Their ancestors can be wild caught. That's fine, but they should adapt to our environment, and we shouldn't harm the environment by having them. Mm-hmm. So because you couldn't get them in the wild, and there was such a demand for them, people learned to breed them. And it's so alien the way they go about it. It actually took quite a bit of learning, and the hobby launched far ahead of academia in learning how to do this.
Yeah.
And while they've been, tarantulas have been kept as pets popular for about 50 years now. It's only been the last 30 years that they even started captive breeding.
Wow.
And then over the last 20 years, it started taking over. And now it's gone the other way. The vast majority of tarantulas out there on the market are now captive bred. And it's getting rare and rare that you're seeing wild-caught animals being just taken out of the wild and offered to people for their homes.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Now, this whole group, there's multiple different tarantulas in this group. Can you talk about some of the other ones and some of the common names that we would look for to be part of this group?
There is, and actually the story of the red leg isn't over. The red leg becoming the red knee, Brachypelma smithii. Well, it turns out that there is a little bit of shenanigans on the academic end, and the holotypes, which are the first specimens that are collected to describe the species, well, the male was one species and the female was another. And when that whole mess got fixed, our friend, the red knee, well, now this is Brachypelma humori, and a spider that I had always known as the Mexican giant orange knee, a more rare and wonderful spider, in my opinion. This used to be known as Brachypelma anitha, but now we have Brachypelma smithii. So if they ask you, well, the real Brachypelma smithii, please stand up, this is her. But Mother Nature loves playing with bright reds and desert species. So she's got quite a few really close relatives that are breathtaking. So we already met the red knee, the Mexican red knee. This is the Mexican giant orange knee. Now this one has changed the amount of color for the intensity. This is a Mexican flame knee, a Brachypelma auratum. And you'll see that while the leg is all black with just white bands, right there at the knee, that beautiful flame epaulets. Now these are desert species. They're very slow growing. This individual is probably in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 years. And she could live to be 20 to 25 years old.
That's a lot longer than I would have expected them to live, and a lot longer to grow than I would have expected.
Desert species. Less food, growing slower, living longer.
Wow. Wow.
And then we've got the fire leg. The common names are awkward for me. You'll find that a lot of people who are in the hobby, we've eschewed common names because they are so variable. And instead we brace the scientific name. It seems odd at first. Some people get shy because a lot of it's Latinized. But at least it was consistent. And just goes to show you, as soon as you get all your ducks in a row, they go and change the ducks on you. Our hobby has been undergoing some rampant reclassifications. But this is just some of the beautiful red leg group defined by Smith in the late 90s. That are commonly kept as pets. They're extremely beautiful. Most of them are pretty chill, though they're quick to throw urticating hairs on you. And very hardy specimens and great pets.
Wow. Now, talk a little bit about their care. Like, how are you guys keeping them here? How would you recommend people keeping them at home? And are there any differences among those guys?
Well, this is a desert species. These are all desert species, so they're super easy to house. Now, what we do is we're giving them what they need to be comfortable and happy, sometimes called the laboratory animal management method, in case what they want is they want a clean, comfortable burrow with access to clean water and food once a week. So we have racks, and they're warmed gently at one end, so that one end of their enclosure is warmer than the other, so that they can either increase or decrease their body heat based on where they are, because they are ectotherms.
Yep.
But when people take these in their home, they have fun with them. I've seen so many beautiful Brachypelma setups that were desert biotopes with all sorts of succulents and soft spine cacti. And some of those are quite colorful and have really beautiful blooms.
Yeah.
So when people put them at home, it turns more of a living diorama or a slice of this animal's wildlife.
That's really cool. That's really cool. That's really cool. Now, talk about care for these guys. Like, how you talked a little bit about they can go a long time without feeding. Like, what's the normal cadence of giving them food? Like, how do you care for them on a regular basis? Being desert species, what is it like to care for them?
Well, I mean, honestly, part of what makes them so hardy, again, like you said, is the fact that like it's pretty predictable as well. So like they can go a long period of time without eating, but typically they're given food at once a week, and
Cool.
so we will do it once a week for food, and then we do a little bit of water in there. So we always recommend, instead of just putting water in the soil and the substrate, since they're a desert species and don't require a heavy amount of humidity, you just overflow a little bit of water in their cup, especially for adults, and
Cool.
that's basically it.
Cool.
What about cleaning, Bruce? How often do you clean their cage or remove their waste?
So as long as if there's waste left behind, that's when you definitely want to clean it, but you don't want to leave like dead food or any dead animals or anything like that for more than a day.
Cool. Cool. Now talk about molting. How often is that happening? And like, how do we know if it's a good molt? And what are some of the issues that we have around molting, especially being a desert species?
Well, molting is one of the most dangerous times for a tarantula because there are so many things that can go wrong. They grow a new exoskeleton underneath their old one. Now, when they do this, their capability for generation is amazing. They can regrow an entire lost limb at that point. But when they come out, their new exoskeleton is soft. And if anything happens to them at that point, they're very vulnerable. So we don't feed them for a week after they molt. On top of that, we don't interact with them. We don't move them. Basically, imagine you're you're a knight in a suit of armor, and every now and again, for one night, your armor turns to paper.
No, there's usually like some signs, right? Like you usually get like you're better at always telling those
Yeah.
signs than I am. I know you'll tell me all the time, like the chalissa, right? We'll start to have a band showing and things like that.
Interesting.
So, but I think one of the other ones that we would always point out is we would start seeing a lot of like patching as far as the abdomen.
Oh, really?
And then you see getting that clear, almost looking like a mirror on that, and it's almost like a week later we see a molt.
Interesting.
The reason you see the little loss in hair, well, there's two reasons. She is got a little bald spot because she's annoyed that I took her out of her home and put her in a container. Because normally our mutual respect clause means we don't mess with each other ever, and she likes that. But she has many. It looks like hair, but she doesn't have hair. Only mammals have hair. They're probably called setae, and they're different types of hairs. Most of these are actually sensory. She's picking up wind movement, vibrations, smells, temperature. But right back here, she has some very short ones that are very shallowly rooted, and those are the urticating hairs. Now, only New World tarantulas have this, and this is a secondary defense. Imagine, if you would, a horrifying cross between fiberglass insulation and poison ivy.
Oh, gosh.
And physically what it is, if you can imagine, a whole bunch of microscopic glass rods. And these glass rods are covered in microscopic hooks. And those hooks are covered in even smaller microscopic hooks. So everything it touches, it snags. But then it breaks. So it spreads like poison ivy. So when she gets close to a molt, the new exocuticle growing under the old exocuticle will actually push them out of their moorings. And it's only the New Worlds you'll see this, but you'll start to see a bald spot. Now, when you see the bald spot, look for the black stripe that's going. That doesn't do you any good. It's just cool to see because that's their heart.
Wow.
And right now, when she's not close to a molt, you'll see that her skin is nearly as pink as mine. But as she gets close to a molt, the outside old exoskeleton will start to sclerotize, and that pink will turn midnight black. And as soon as it's midnight black, within 24 hours, she will molt.
Interesting. And are they molting parts? Are they molting a whole exoskeleton? How does that work?
The best way you can imagine it is imagine if you're wearing a suit of armor like a knight, and the only way you can get out is you can open the back panel, turn your bones to jelly, squish your way out like an octopus, stand up, harden your bones up, and walk away, leaving the empty suit of armor.
Wow. That's so cool. That's
a very,
so cool.
very accurate way to put that.
Yeah.
And quite alarming to new owners, they molt on their back. And when they do, they start doing these like pushes and stretches as they're getting ready to move a straight joint through a hinge. And it looks like the spider is dying on its back. And far too many first-time owners have thought, it's dying and put it in the freezer to finish the job. But no, please, people. Tarantulas die in their bellies. They don't die in their backs like roaches. So if you see it on its back and it's pulsing, take pictures every 15 minutes. Sure, you wish you had, because you're about to watch an amazing thing.
Wow, that's so cool. That's so cool. Now, somebody, maybe their kid is interested in getting a tarantula, and they're maybe a little bit more reserved, and they're like, I don't know if we should do this. What would you say to somebody who has a child or a student that is wanting a tarantula, and you're a little bit reserved? Like, how safe is it? How often are they getting out of the cage? Like these hairs, like how often am I going to be having the issues with hairs getting flung at me? Talk to us a little bit about keeping them, and what would you say to somebody who was a little bit nervous about keeping tarantula as a pet?
Bruce, pair with me. As I'm talking about a few spiders, can you reach over and grab them and show them? Fantastic. We'll start with the pulchra. So different species of tarantulas tend to have bring it in front. You're the one showing it off. Tend to have different personalities, and it's consistent. Just like most people who got a golden retriever or a Weimaraner, or hopefully that lady that got the Chihuahua knew what she was getting into. Different tarantula species are known to have different personalities. Now, this is the golden retriever of tarantulas. This was the species that I got as the first tarantula for my kid. This is Grammostola pulchra, the Brazilian black tarantula. And from your reptile Latin, you might remember pulchra means beautiful, and I agree. Yep. This is a slow-growing species. My kid's 4-year-old was that big. But they tend to be very slow-moving, gentle-natured. So starting out with a first tarantula, while there are some that are known to be quite irascible, like the OBT, which either stands for orange baboon tarantula or orange bitey thing, stick with a species that's known to be pretty and pretty nice. Another one, could you show the baby versicolor? Also, I recommend species that are out and about, because when it comes to children interacting with the spiders directly, it's generally a bad idea. But while some species are out and about species, and others are basically, they're called pet holes because that's what you've got for a pet, a hole. Yep. This is a species that tends to be very out and about. They're not particularly aggressive, but they may not be your friend. But they're absolutely gorgeous. This is a Carabiner versicolor, the Antilles pinktoe.
We call them little blueberries.
Wandering blueberries, because, again, different species have different habits. This species isn't like an escape artist like some members of the genus Tapenikinias. You don't have time to worry about where they're going because they're already there. This is more like your toddler right out the bath who wants to run around and do the naked mile. Yeah. We call them wandering blueberries. When we're feeding them, they pop out, they run around your hand, you put them back in, and I mentioned that we chase baby spiders around, right? Yep. We do that. So this one's actually really cool. Scientific name, the epithet is versicolor. That means to change color. So as a baby, I don't know how well this is showing up on camera, but they're absolutely beautiful sapphire blue. But as they grow, they go to metallic pink. Huh. So I recommend picking one that is out and about, because especially for a child, if they're not able to interact with it, if they're not able to see it, then they're going to lose interest. Yeah. Cool. All right, we're going to move on to the lightning round. I'm going to ask you a question. Give me the first thing that pops into your guys' mind. And if you don't have anything that pops in your mind, you can say skip, and we'll go on to the next question. So no pressure. This is all about you. All right. If money and space were no issue, you had unlimited space, you had unlimited money, what's your dream pet? We'll start with Bruce. We'll go with you first.
Oh, man, I'm going to throw one to Mike Tyson on this one. I want a tiger so bad.
Really? That's awesome. That's awesome. What about you, Jason?
Black throat monitor.
Really?
Yep. I don't have a house that's big enough for one, but I mean, if there's a dog of a monitor, that's it. Yep.
All right. Besides Josh's Frogs, what's another brand that's either creating cool products that you want to give a shout out to, or that's producing quality animals that you would like to say, hey, they're doing great things in our hobby? So either a brand that's doing some cool products or another breeder doing some animals. What do you think, Bruce?
I've got a pair of Deadpool line geckos from Tiki's Geckos, and I think just the stuff he's working with is just beautiful.
Cool.
He's really got some cool garbo geckos.
What about you, Jason?
Well, hopefully it's okay for me to do the shout out too. But after spending 2 decades with them, I can't help but shout out what, in my opinion, is the best pet store in the world. It's Preuss Pets. It's a specialty pet store in Old Town Lansing. Old man Rick's been doing this forever, and he was like, you know what? These hobbyists, they've got great ideas and so much great pets. Let's make a pet store full of them. Yeah. And that's my second home.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. First pet. Bruce, what was your first pet that you had?
It was a dog.
Oh.
Yeah. I had a German Shepherd named Puppy, literally. I have no creative mind whatsoever when it comes to dog names. But I love that dog to death, and we've had her till she was 14, and she passed on. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Wow, Puppy, that's a great name. What about you, Jason? What was your first pet?
Well, the first pet that I owned, I grew up with dogs and cats. So the first pet that I owned was a boa constrictor.
Oh, really?
And I had thought long and hard about before getting such a pet, because it's a giant snake.
Yeah.
One of the smallest of the giant snakes.
Yep.
And you got to think long and hard, because when you're young, you're mobile, you're moving around, and sometimes you don't get a choice. When I left New Orleans, I had to sell her because where I was going, I couldn't take her.
Yeah.
It broke my heart.
Yep.
But I'm so glad that I sold her to somebody on the North Shore, because that was just before Katrina.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
All right. Favorite animal or plant in the entire world? Like, what's the coolest thing that our planet has to offer? Bruce?
Oh, man. I am incredibly fascinated by whales in general.
Yep.
But like humpback whales.
Oh yeah.
Like just the fact that something so insanely massive yet so incredibly gentle is out there in the world is weird to me.
That's cool. What about you, Jason? Favorite animal or plant in our whole planet?
God, I tend to be kind of Steve Irwin about it. Depends on what I'm in front of. There's some great ones.
That's a hard question.
Yeah, it is.
It is. I don't know, some of the extremely intelligent monitors in Australia.
Yeah. Yep. All right. What did you want to be when you grew up when you were a kid? What was the dream job that you wanted? What was it, Bruce?
Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin.
I just wanted to be him.
Yep.
100%.
What about you, Jason?
I didn't know I wanted to be Steve Irwin until I was older. I mean, things changed. The very first job I wanted, believe it or not, I wanted to be a soulless stock trader in New York with a Lamborghini.
Wow, I cannot imagine you doing that, Jason.
Even imagine that.
Sell
That's
out.
awesome. That's awesome.
No, it's not sell out. You got to buy into that.
All right, you guys have an hour of free time. No one's bugging you. You can do whatever you want for that hour. What are you doing, Bruce? What is it you're feeling?
I'm taking my bike to the track and going as fast as I can.
When you say bike, are you pedaling this
No,
bike?
motorcycle. Yeah,
Motorcycle?
motorcycle bike,
Cool.
motorbike. I have a crotch rocket or whatever it's called.
Cool.
And then I take it to a track, and I've already broken my shoulder and broken my leg doing it, but
Wow.
it's fun.
That's cool. That's cool. What about you, Jason? What are you doing? Hour of free time.
I hope you guys don't think it's lame, but I'm really, really obsessed with my job right now. I'm going to do exactly what I'm about to do when I get off of this. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm moving the arachnid division to the second floor, and I'm pretty excited. I'd go downstairs and work on that.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. If you had a bunch of people listening to you, you had the ear of a bunch of people, what's one thing you would tell them, remind them of? What's one thing that you learned that you'd want to share with somebody else? What's one thing you would say to people? If everybody's looking at you, everybody's listening, what's one thing you would say to them?
Whenever you have the option, be kind and be generous.
Bruce, what about you?
Saying please and thank you.
Yeah.
All the time.
Cool. Thank you guys for dropping some knowledge on us and taking a group of animals that sometimes is a little bit fearful and really boiling it down to make us appreciate those animals. So thank you for doing that. These guys are on a lot of lives and producing a bunch of content, from writing articles and putting a bunch of stuff out, and you'll even see them at some of the shows and whatnot. So make sure you say hi to them at that time. So thanks a lot, Jason. Thanks a lot, Bruce. Take care, guys. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoy this content and want to stay up to date, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us across social media. We always want to bring you the best content, so let us know what you think in the comments. And for all your reptile and amphibian needs, be sure to check us out at joshsfrogs.com. We have an amazing selection. Until next time, stay curious, stay froggy, and keep exploring.